I know why you're here. You've heard about my little holotape library, haven't you? I have quite an extensive collection. It's really rather impressive if I do say so myself. And I do. You know, it's amazing what you can get your hands on out there if you keep your eyes peeled. Or if you pay the right people a suitable amount of whatever floats their boat. You know, I met this guy once, a peculiar feller. He had this neat little collection of holotapes stashed away in an old cigar box, and all he wanted for them was a sponge cake. It turned out to be quite a challenge for me, though. I'm definitely no baker. But you know how the saying goes, if you want something bad enough, you'll find a way to get it. Come think of it, Riley DiFranco's runaway tapes were in that box. I bet you'd like to listen to those. Have you heard of her? Nah, you probably haven't, never mind, but I think you'll like her story. It's a bit dark, sure. Trouble did seem to find her, but it's very interesting nonetheless. On a side note, though, I think I should mention that some of these tapes have been reconstructed. By me, of course. The test of time can be a cruel one. But I can assure you, though, every last word has been truthfully re-recorded, and I've done my very best to emulate whatever tone of voice I originally found on the tapes. But in the end, you know, there's only so much I can do. So, are you ready? Okay, here we go. So this is Riley DiFranco, holotape number 1. My name is Riley DiFranco, and less than 3 days ago, I was abandoned. Bobby, of course, didn't have any choice in the matter. Not much an 8-year-old can do when Dr. Death comes collecting. But Dad left on his own accord. It didn't exactly come as a surprise. He's been itching to leave ever since it got clear that Bobby wouldn't make it. The real surprise was that he stuck around long enough to see it happen. He didn't quite cry. Not exactly. But his jawline twitched, and his eyes welled up ever so slightly when I told him. It lasted no longer than a few seconds, though. He had a game of dice and a drink to finish, and so he brushed me off with a matter-of-fact nod and said, "Well, I guess that's over and done with then." He might be a shit father, but it's not like he didn't care at all. He's just quick to accept the things he can't change. I remember him being the same way when Mom died, giving birth to Bobby. He just stood there, motionless like a rock, with the screaming baby in his hands, staring down at Mom. Then he took a deep breath, nodded and said, "Well, there's nothing we can do about that. It's time for you to grow up, Riley." He left then too. He shoved the baby into my arms and straight up disappeared, only to reappear 2 whole days later, smelling like the inside of Mad Daniel's moonshine distillery. I was desperate and furious. I hadn't slept since he left. The baby had refused to stop crying, and I'd been afraid he might die of hunger because I couldn't make him latch on to Mom's breasts. I screamed at Dad, asked him what the fuck I was supposed to do with a fucking baby all on my fucking own. "You're a woman," he said. "You'll figure it out." I was 11 at the time, and I never quite figured it out. Bobby grew up a shit child. He had a mean way about him, and I never really liked him. I did love him, I guess, in my own subtle way, but never as much as when he was actually dying. I didn't wish for him to die, I swear I didn't, but when I learned that he would, I felt relieved nonetheless. I'm not proud of that. It's my own fault I didn't like him. I should have raised him better. Maybe I deserved this. Being abandoned, being on the run. I guess I haven't really told you about that yet. After Dad left, I had to run. He left me no choice. He robbed them blind, not of caps, not of supplies, but of chems. He cleaned out the camp's entire stash, took it with him, and left me behind to deal with the fallout. We live with raiders. They don't exactly take kindly to something like that. I had to run. It's not like I got much time to think about it either. That mad piece of shit Pezzy almost tore the trailer door straight off its hinges, barging in there, shooting his gun at me. Only inches from my face, I might add. I fell backwards over Bobby's body and fell on my ass before I even really knew what was happening. "Where's your sleazeball daddy, sweetheart?" he said. I told him I had no clue and asked him what the hell he was doing shooting at me. He responded by shooting Bobby dead in the eye. "Daddy went bye-bye with all of our chems, baby girl," Pessy said and shot at me on the floor. "Wouldn't happen to know anything about that now, would you?" I told him no, that I'd been hanging out with Bobby's body and that I wasn't my daddy's keeper. Pessy wasn't having any of it. I could see it coming miles away. You couldn't reason with his psycho-fueled ass. So instead I made a split-second decision to run. I got on my feet, pretending to cooperate, and then I flung myself through the missing window in the trailer and bolted. Everything just went to hell after that. Pessy screamed something and everybody started shooting at me. Dad has a knack for getting into sticky situations, so it's not like this was the first time I ever had to get the hell out of Dodge because of him. This time sure was different, though. It's like I said, when we learned that Bobby was gonna die, I started to suspect that he would split for good. He'd up and left us before from time to time to go on a bender or shack up with a bit somewhere, but he always came back. It was a given. But this time was different, though. Dad was different somehow. I can't really explain how. He just was. So yeah, I expected him to leave me behind this time, only not like this. The shit he pulled practically signed my death warrant. The only reason I got out of there alive was a mix of dumb luck and the fact that it was getting dark out. The camp was lit up, but I took a nasty tumble down the rocky hillside behind a trailer and landed my ass in darkness. I hit my head and sprained my wrist, and I had a bullet in my shoulder, yet I was lucky. They weren't too keen to follow me down the hillside, you see, and they took a detour. It allowed me to slip into the nearby lake without them noticing. It was a gamble, but I didn't know what else to do. I was being quiet, but I was bleeding into the water and could only pray that the mirelurks wouldn't catch the scent. I knew they were there too. We used to take pot shots at them from the top of the trailer when we got bored. Bobby never hit anything. It was a horrible shot. The rifle knocked him flat on his ass every time he fired it. It was hilarious. Sure, he didn't think so, but I sure did. I have no idea how long I was in the water for, but it was a long time, and I was a shivering mess when I finally dared to come back up. I used the stars to navigate. It's easy enough if you know where you're going, and I knew exactly where I was going. Dad had been talking about going to Megaton for years. He had an old buddy up there or something. Someone we could maybe shack up with someday, he used to say. My family has always just sort of drifted around from place to place. We've met a few friends that way. Mostly enemies, though. Dad does like to burn his bridges. Sometimes we'd stick around for a few weeks, other times a few years. It all depended, you know. We didn't always stay with raiders, but after Mom died, it did sort of become a go-to move of my dad's. He had a way with them. The camp I just left, we stayed there the longest. Almost 3 years. The area was fat with loot. It was trader territory up there. We had it good, and so we stuck around longer. It wasn't just Dad who liked it there, though. Bobby did too, and he fit right in as well. He worshipped Pessy and all his guys, and all he wanted to do was impress them. Which wasn't really all that hard. All he had to do was be cruel or violent to somebody. A specialty of his, one that made Pessy roar with laughter, was creeping up on the women in the camp and sink his teeth into their inner thighs until they bled. He did that to me once, but I put a stop to it right away. Hitting him up top of the head was just instinct. He'd startled me, and it hurt like hell. But grabbing him by the hair and smashing his head into the tabletop, that was intentional. He passed out for quite a good while and threw up for the next 2 days, and he never bit me again. When you live with raiders, you learn how to make an example out of the first idiot who tries to hurt or take something from you. I learned that the hard way. Yeah, so Megaton it was. I was going to find my dad and punch him in the throat. That was pretty much the entirety of my plan at the time. It shouldn't take me too long either. Megaton wasn't that far off. Slight issue, though. When the sun started to rise, I passed out cold. As it turns out, blood loss and radiation sickness have that effect on the human body. When I came to, the sun was out, and a traveling merchant called something like Doc Hoff had helped himself to the caps in my pockets. They didn't fully cover the rat-away he'd given me while I was out, but he'd taken mercy on me and helped me out anyways, he told me. I told him that I was very, very grateful, and then I robbed him. Not straight away, of course. He was traveling with an armed guard, but it didn't take me too long. I fed them mostly lies, said I didn't really know where I was or where I was going, played weak and dumb and confused. I don't know how much of the act they actually bought. Traveling merchants aren't usually that easy to fool, but they bought enough of it to leave their guard down. Bad move. When the guard went to take a dump, it was easy enough for me to startle him and grab hold of his weapon. It's a sweet-ass assault rifle, and it's all mine now. I left them alive, courtesy of them not just leaving me to die when they first found me, but that was about the extent of my kindness. If you intend to keep your hand, don't stick it in my pocket where it doesn't belong. As for caps, I cleaned them out, but besides that, I only took what I could fit in this backpack I found on his Brahmin. I took some food and water, a map, this holotape recorder, and some ammo. Oh, and a bunch of chems, too. As it turned out, that was his deal. Chems. Ironic, really. That was yesterday. Today, I guess I don't really have a whole lot left to say. I can see Megaton from where I'm standing, and it looks nowhere as amazing as Dad made it out to be. Actually, it looks kinda shitty from here. It's hardly surprising, though. Me and Dad never could agree on traveling destinations. He's been raving about this place for years, but all I really wanted to do was go to Nuka World. I mean, I'm not stupid, okay? I know it's probably been bombed to all hell like everything else has. But it looks nice on the postcards. They're all back at camp, though. It's a shame. I've been collecting them since I was little. It's this huge pre-war park made just for kids. Apparently families used to go there to have fun. Sounds pretty amazing to me. Megaton doesn't look amazing. Actually, Megaton looks like a pile of fucking trash. Of course Dad would want to come here. Well, I guess this is it. Riley out.